So I'll quickly introduce them and then they're going to share their tips and experiences working together as like a bakery, restaurant, and an organic grower. So first I'll introduce Kaelin. Kaelin started Awn Kitchen, formerly called Ruby Apron, in 2015, then a home-based business devoted to teaching people how to cook and connect with growers and producers. In 2021, she expanded to a brick and mortar location in Southwest Edmonton. Space is both a workshop where Kaelin continues to educate, as well as a cafe that utilizes local and seasonal ingredients, sharing the story of producers in Alberta. Also, if you have to check out Awn Kitchen, I think they have the best cinnamon buns in Edmonton. So if you're ever in Edmonton, make sure to check them out. And joining Kaelin is Andrea. Andrea and her partner Dennis have a 35-acre vegetable farm in Camrose, Alberta, called Grey Arrow Farm. This is their 6th season on the farm, and they love to welcome locals to their CSA community and providing great tasting, sustainably growing vegetables for individuals, restaurants, and families in the surrounding area. So thank you both for being here, and I will open the floor to you.
There we go.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Yeah, so that was a wonderful introduction. I was just going to say the same thing, that we grow organic vegetables, and Kaelin is a cafe restaurant, but as well, she does cooking classes, and that's kind of her big thing there. And so we have had a relationship for probably about 5 years here. We were talking about how we met, and it was on Instagram. So social media for our farm has definitely been a big way that we've connected with, I think, every one of our collaborators, our chefs, our restaurants, and other opportunities that have come our way. So I always encourage farmers, if you're not on social media, get on social media, because that's definitely where the food hub is. So yeah, so Kaelin and I met on social media, and then we of course connected at a farmer's market somewhere down the line. And it's just over the years here, we've done more and more together, and we've collaborated on quite a few different projects, and we really love Kaelin. She's been great to work with, and then she of course has worked with a number of local farms. She sources from a number of them, so she's very well educated in how to make those relationships work, as well as what some of the pitfalls can kind of be. And then as a grower, we've also sourced to a number of chefs and restaurants and have had good experiences and negative experiences. So anyways, our relationship with Kaelin is a really positive experience. So we're excited to share about why that is and how to make that work. Yeah. So Kaelin, we were chatting about doing this talk and kind of what we've learned about how to cultivate a successful relationship between chef and farmer. And we recognize that that it really is a two-way street. Like you need both the chef and the farmer to be on board and having shared values and wanting to work together. So yeah, I'll just kind of turn it over to you here to chat about that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is unique about my business is that I went to cooking school on an organic farm in Ireland. So I came back with a foundation that was about, building relationships with producers and seeing value in that right off the bat. So I didn't need to, I already had that kind of education in the back that started, was easy for me to start those relationships. And well, it wasn't actually. I mean, it obviously takes time to cold call farmers and be like, yeah, I want to use your produce, or can I come and see your farm? And I can remember those first few relationships that I built. They were hard. I didn't always know that questions to ask. I didn't know. I built relationships with farmers that then I found out weren't doing what they told me they were doing and things like that. So you continuing to stay educated throughout the process of building these relationships. But I think that's one thing that I think for all of the farms that I work with, it probably has been, I don't want to sound cocky, but it's probably been an easy sell to me because I see the value. Whereas I think from when I think farmers are trying to work with restaurants, I think there's a huge piece of education in there, and that takes time, and farmers are busy. And I think from the restaurant side, we need to see value in what the farmer's doing, but also value in their time beyond the farming, right? So to call and say, hey, can I come to your farm? And it's, the middle of summer and they're harvesting and it's busy and whatever, it maybe isn't the most ideal time, but guess what? That's the time people want to come to your farm, right? Is when they can see it all kind of happening. So I think it really is a two-way street, and there has to be, and one of the big things that Andrea and I chatted about was building relationships with the right people from both sides. So from the farmer side, I think it's really important. Invest your time in restaurants that really care and that really see value and aren't just doing it for that kind of tagline of local, which I think we all know exists and happens. And it's a sad reality of the food world, how we kind of glom onto these, I like to call them trigger words, and we feel that they're going to bring value to our restaurant or whatever we're doing, but don't necessarily see the full picture of what that trigger word can mean for your business. And another really big point on that is, I think, and this has happened in restaurants across the board, where you start working with a restaurant, and let's say I've got Grey Arrows carrots on my menu, and then all of a sudden I stop buying Grey Arrows carrots. Make sure, I'm not going to stop buying your carrots, Andrea, but make sure you, if someone stops buying from you, make sure you they've taken your name off that menu, because that's a really unfortunate piece of this puzzle that I think is, I mean, it makes my blood boil that people would do that, but they see the value, but they don't see the value in the price, right? So that's a tricky.
Yeah, we've noticed that too. Like there's quite a few restaurants and chefs that have approached us over the years, and they're excited to connect with a local farm, and they want to source locally because that's a big fad right now too. But they're not actually ready for what is involved in that. They like the idea more than maybe the reality. For us, especially as produce farmers, it's very seasonal, right? What's ready when, and it fluctuates even from week to week. And so chefs do need to be able and willing to adapt their menu according to what's available. And then even, we might predict that something's ready next week, and then some kind of crop failure happens. And so suddenly there's a shift. And so chefs, like, there is that piece, is the chef that you're wanting to work with willing to be flexible, willing to adapt. And then that goes to what you were saying, Kaelin, about like, do they see the value in buying local? Like, they have to see the bigger picture here, and they have to be on board with that. And so we've had a lot of chefs approach us, and then it kind of just drops off because they're not up for adapting in that way. And so Kaelin and I were talking about, as farmers, like, what can the farmer do? Because we're kind of helpless in that scenario. That's purely on the chef. Like, the chef has to be excited and passionate, just like you are, and willing to go forward in that way. And so what can we as the farmer do to help with that process? And so we basically, there's some questions that we can ask the chefs to try to learn their value systems. We wrote down a few here. What were they? What does local mean to you? So kind of like, as a farmer, getting to know the chef's values on that, and are they interested in supporting a local farm? Why are they interested in supporting the local farm? Do they have relationships with other farms? Those are kind of some questions you can just feel out with your chefs. And then, of course, like, I always do the education piece of, so just so you know, this is what our season looks like. Things are ready differently from week to week, and we'll keep you updated, but are you able to adapt your menu? Like, we're not going to have some things ready all summer long. We don't have greenhouse. So it's like, it's totally based on the weather and all of that. So educating our chefs with that, and like, right up front is a helpful piece. And then, like,
I think to helping educate the chef how they can, and the restaurants, and their staff, how they can work with their customers, to educate their customers too, right? Because at the end of the day, that's one of the reasons farm or restaurants don't want to do it, right? Because if the carrot isn't a consistent size on the plate, or whatever it might be, that takes work on their end to educate the customer. So it's a multi kind of level thing that has to trickle down. And I think that the relationship between the farmer and the restaurant has to be really strong. And then from there, working together to figure out ways that they can support the customer through that kind of journey, and really sharing the story of the farmer through your restaurant or cafe. And a beautiful, I think, example of this is in Castor and Chartier and Beaumont. I think they do this so well, and they've really invested from both sides. They've invested in one another, and it's a beautiful example of and then they share it with the customers, and the customers are on board, and they want to support they know that by buying this burger they're supporting Red Tail, and that kind of the evolution of the business, and for them it's beef, but it's quite a journey, but it takes effort. And I think that's so often from both sides, and I think that's so often what's missed.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just what you were saying with the beef and the meats, like, I know for those farmers, it's the whole animal thing. Like, is the chef going to be willing and able to not just take select cuts, but like learn ways to use the whole animal? So there's a lot in this collaboration that I feel like falls to the chef, even more than the farmer. But as a farmer, like what can I do? I'm always coming back to that. What can I do on my part to try to move this forward so that more chefs are on board and more restaurants are on board so that we can have that wonderful relationship. And it does come down to education. I feel like that's the piece I can do. That's the part I can play. And so knowing what I'm needing from chefs and what it needs to look like in order for it to work, and then try to communicate that. And yeah, and on a big process, like on a big scale, I do that a lot through, or I try to do it through social media. I do it through just a lot of conversations to really adapt that thinking, because not a lot of chefs are aware of that. Like you are very aware of that stuff, and it's wonderful working with you because of that. But yeah.
And I think something that you do so well, Andrea, and if you don't follow Andrea on social media, you're honest and you share that journey. It's easy to kind of connect, and you come down to a really, a base level. You come down to the consumer's level, right? And recognizing that they might not know the whole story, and sharing that whole story can make them can help them see the value in the whole process. And that's a huge piece. And that takes work.
Yeah.
To create that open communication. Another big piece I think too is that often chefs aren't owners, so they aren't calling the shots when it comes to the so even that if you're working with a chef that's maybe not as a producer, if you're working with a chef that's not an owner, maybe saying how can we get your owner on board to this, and how can we, and inviting the owner out, not just the chef, to the farm to see or connecting directly with both of them, I think is a really important piece.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we really talked about that, how cultivating like an actual personal relationship with each other beyond just like what can I serve to you and what can you buy from me, like actually getting to know each other and having that relationship has been really played into this a lot. And I think we're going to talk about that a little bit more later. But another piece that I wanted to add for me as a farmer, like what I can do for my restaurants in order to make them wanting to continue buying from me, what making it workable for them is just some basic things like making it very convenient for them to order from me. I know that not every farm has like a convenient ordering system for their chefs. And especially if I'm going to be changing like for me as a produce farmer, what's available week to week for my chefs is going to be constantly changing. So I have, for our farm, we have a really streamlined system that we've put in place, and we just use the Square Store app or whatever on our website. And I think they have an app now on the phone that I'm planning to implement this summer. But basically every week I just update what we have available in the garden and take off the things that aren't. And then every Friday, Kaelin knows that that's good to go and she can order from there, and then we deliver it Monday. So it's like a very rhythmic kind of thing. Every Friday, the site's updated. She can go on and she can click, pick the things she wants and put the order through, and then we deliver it the following week. So it's very streamlined that way. And then also we add a chef, like a wholesale discount for our chefs, and it's just this easy coupon code that Kaelin can punch in at the end, and it just applies a percentage discount on everything. And so that's just a very basic, like easy, simple way to make it more convenient for our chefs. I do know other farmers, some of them will email a weekly fresh sheet out, and we tried that earlier on, where again, every certain day of the week, Friday or something, you send out a fresh list of what you have available in the garden and what they can order and the prices and all that. And then the chef will then text you their order or whatever it is, and you deliver. So having those regular kind of rhythmic things is helpful. But I've found that the Square Store, just personally, we found that very streamlined and easy. And I think Kaelin found that fairly simple.
I'm more likely to order because of that, because I don't have to kind of go through an email and then type it up and then wait for an invoice that I forget to pay or whatever. So that sounds very lazy, but it's streamlined. I know what's available. I can order it. I pop the order in and I know it'll be delivered tomorrow, and I don't have to worry about it, or the next week, and I don't have to worry about anything. So it's very streamlined.
And for us, she pays right then and there. It's like online shopping, right? So then we're not having to go after and try to like remind to pay invoices too. So it's all very,
and it's an efficient system, I think, for both sides of the relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another thing that we do as a farmer to help make that more streamlined for our chefs to source locally. And then of course, Kaelin and I were saying that both sides, like the chef and the farmer, need to contribute to cultivating that relationship with one another. And so like I really had a lot of questions for Kaelin, because she's very forward. So as a chef, it was very wonderful that she on her own was doing the reaching out. She reaches out to all her farms and she's like, can I come visit? Can I come get to know you? So especially we were young farmers when she first connected with us. We were in our first or second year, and And so it was really nice having her know what she was doing and really take the reins on that relationship. But what we've learned through Kaelin is that, yeah, to welcome chefs onto our farm and to and their teams, even like Kaelin will bring her team out to come and see what's all going on and where their food is coming from, and get to know our operation and how it's going. And I know, Kaelin, you'd shared with me, like, you've had both positive and negative experiences with that. So as farmers, like I'll pass it to you here. Like, what can we do to make that relationship more effective?
So I mean, I like to say I'm not on social media, social media marketing kind of makes my head spin, but I think there's a mutual respect, right? And I think that's what Andrea and Dennis do so well, is that you guys see value in what I'm doing as a business, and not just on the education side. I think it's a different piece in the workshop, but even in the cafe, and that I'm sharing those kind of stories through the cafe. And you guys really value that. And in turn, I get something in terms of a mutual relationship, but also you guys are sharing on social media, and you're sharing kind of my story and my journey. So there's benefit, for me to connect with some of your clients that maybe I wouldn't have been able to before. And that takes time. I mean, it's not, as a restaurant and cafe, I can tell you, if I'm promoting your product left, right, and center, and I get nothing in return, that relationship's going to fall off the bridge, just like anything in life, right? You do expect, it's not an expectation that something's in return, but there's a mutual level of respect and agreement, respect and building from there. And I think you and Dennis do that so well, and I'm very very grateful for that. And not everyone, and again, it's not everyone has the time or the resources or maybe the know-how to do it, right? It does take time. And again, I think for you it's easy, maybe not easy, but it's social media, right? That's how we connect, and that's how you promote a lot of what I'm doing, and how I'm in return able to promote what you're doing. From someone that's not on social media, how would that look? It would be more difficult. It might be through word of mouth, and then I don't necessarily see that. If someone doesn't tell me that they heard from you, I don't necessarily know that happened. So it could be happening, but it's nice to know that it's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I always just come back to, we're both trying to build businesses here. So like, let's help each other as we forward our businesses.
And I think that that's something that everyone needs to realize. Farms are businesses, and people don't always see that, right? So it's such a basic thing, but a farm is a business, and you're building a business, right? And as a business owner, I know what that's like. I don't know what it's like to be a farmer, but I know the struggles and kind of ups and downs of that, right? So even in that, I think I know the best advice I get in terms of business advice, is from farmers, because they can relate to some of the struggles, even though it's a different industry.
Yeah, for sure. And then just to speak to what you were saying, like, so as a farmer, how I try to give back to Kaelin, because I do know that she has her name on her menu books and her recipe books and things, that she talks about us openly at her cooking classes, and she promotes us on social media. She tags us if there's a class that's coming on that we're a part of, just different things like that. So she's always plugging her farmers, and then it's the same, like, that's the return. So that's the return that I'm giving her. And again, she's never asked me to, but it's just recognizing that she's also trying to build a business here. And so what can I do to support her in that? So I will, I'll do a post saying, hey, have you guys checked out Kaelin's cooking class? And I'll link right back to her, or a story, just finding ways to say, to direct people to see her and kind of get her in the public eye through my page and through what I'm doing. We talk about our relationship with each other on social media, that kind of thing. And then also, like, Kaelin's really great at, she does cooking classes, and some of them are literally like farm to table cooking classes where she'll feature a farm. And so sometimes we get to be that farm, other ones are too, and she'll have us come in. But we're not just going in there to like meet and greet with her customers, but we're also promoting that ahead of time on our pages and talking about that collaboration. So basically, as much as we can, we try to talk about our relationship with her out loud on social media. And so that's basically what she was referring to there, is that kind of connection back. It's not just a one-way thing.
Yeah, and then other things, I think that, if you have an abundance of kale, or if you have an abundance of, that maybe you're not going to be able to use, reaching out and letting your restaurants know that, because that's something that if they're able to adapt, maybe you can give it to them at a discounted price, or maybe, or maybe not, maybe you just have it and it needs to be used, and they can feature it in a different way and say, hey, this year they had a bumper crop of kale or whatever, and we're using it because, and sharing, again, connecting back to that farm for the restaurant to be able to share the kind of story and the reality of farming. I was going to say one other thing in terms of other things that as a restaurant that I would, but it's gone. Maybe it'll come back to me. But
No, I've definitely found that a lot of the chefs that we've worked with and stuff, they really don't know the realities of farming. And for us as farmers, it's just second nature. We know how this all works, but kind of always bringing it back to like assuming that without downgrading anyone, assuming that people don't know anything about what we do and how it works here on the farm. And so just warmly educating people all the time, and yeah, inviting them out to the farm for visits and talking to people. Yeah.
I think that was the other, keeping you in the loop too about what's happening. You know, I mean, is it a dry year? Is it a wet year? Is this going to impact, you know, a crop that's coming later in the season? And just keeping your restaurants in the loop about what's kind of coming ahead, so that they can maybe be more prepared. If you know, and that's in a perfect world. That's obviously not farming. Sometimes it happens faster than you can predict. But if you know, just keeping them in the loop, and so that they can make other arrangements, and that takes honesty and an open and competent relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Kaelin, I was going to ask you, or I've asked you before, like what do you look for when you're connecting with farmers? Because I know there are some people who, when you're reaching out to a new farm, that kind of, you're like, yeah, I'm not going to go forward with them.
Authenticity, I think, is a big one, and a want. Like if I'm not going to invest in building a relationship with the farm, if they don't, and that's okay. Not everyone needs to want to build a relationship with me or with restaurants, right? But if there's a mutual respect, and I feel like I can learn something from them, and that they can maybe learn something from me, and we can collaborate, and that it can be a relationship that lasts kind of, you know, hope the goal is obviously years to come. And I think Highwood Crossing, I have a really great relationship with Highwood Crossing and High River, and they're more, I mean, they do farm, but it's more of a, I guess, producer kind of background. And everything that they've done just to build my confidence, be there to kind of bounce ideas off of, and all of those things. So it's that mutual kind of, there's something in it for both parties. And I think that's a really important piece. But I think it's just authenticity, and that they're doing something that I see as unique and worth investing my time in.
Awesome. Yeah, and then when we talked earlier about like what I'm looking for in a chef, like we're looking for chefs who are interested in the same value system, or have the same value system, and who are being willing to adapt and that kind of thing. So as a farmer here, I may come in touch with certain chefs or restaurants that might not really be worth my time at the end of it all, and that's okay too. So don't feel like, you're allowed to be choosy, or you're allowed to figure out what's working and the ones that aren't.
And I think that comes down to recognizing that not the trigger words that kind of, and that some people might just be doing it for the totally wrong reasons from both sides. And it's not worth it. I've done it. I've built relationships, and then they're hard to get out of too sometimes. So there's that side of it.
Yeah, totally.
And another thing, Andrea has kind of touched on, is the idea of other ways to collaborate. It doesn't just have to be that I'm buying their produce and using it, but there's other ways, and that's through for me, the classes and things like that. I'm also a host for their CSA. We host 2 other CSAs here too, and recognizing that community can kind of go beyond just a single relationship. And I think that that's something that adds value to the restaurant or the cafe, but also adds value to the farmer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you being a host for our CSA has been really great. And hopefully both ways, like the idea is that our customers are going into your shop, and hopefully they're buying from you as well. And then also, again, that's another way that we look to, like, every week we're dropping off our bins there. So we look to try to promote you, or take pictures and snapshots and talk about, hey, everyone, we're at Awn Kitchen this week, or you should go check it out. So again, as a farmer, just looking for ways to help boost the other business as well as our own. And then we've also done cooking classes together, and we've done farm tours with you. We did at one point we did an outdoor cooking class here on the farm, which was kind of
with a whole lot of wasps.
It didn't turn out so great that way, but yeah, there's always ways to collaborate if you're looking for it. And I feel like everything we've done, it continues to deepen the relationship, right? And so that makes it really positive all the way around.
Yes, yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Kiara, are we supposed to be done at 10? Were we supposed to be done at 10:15, or did I?
Oh, it's okay. We have until 10:35. That's
Okay.
when we'll move on to the next session.
Okay. See, I just looked up at the time and thought, oh no, maybe we were supposed to. Maybe we will. Andrea, I don't know if you have anything else to say, but maybe we will if there's any questions.
Yeah.
Sure thing. Yeah, and feel free to again type that in the chat. Raise your hand through your reactions button and raise hand, or unmute yourself. And maybe while people are typing, I was wondering, Andrea, are there any other like systems or processes that you've had to implement on your farm? You talked about Squarespace, and I guess now also the transportation to Awn Kitchen for the CSA. Are there any other things that you've had to add?
Oh, I'm trying to think. I feel like we've, over the years, like kind of honed in what works for us and what doesn't. And yeah, the Square Space Store was really good for us. And yeah, this year I noticed they have an app. I haven't got that far yet, but I'm planning to get it as an app, which makes it even that much more convenient. Oh man, I can't think of anything more off the top of my head. Like, we are all about systems here, so any way that we can implement a system just seems to make it more efficient. But yeah, that's all I can think of at the moment.
That is one, I think. So I'm obviously in Edmonton, and Andrea's in near Camrose, and I think that's something, like, I obviously can't drive out to Camrose weekly to get my ingredients for either the cafe or the workshop. So that is one huge benefit, is that I'm a CSA drop off. But even before that, Andrea and Dennis would bring in an order to a CSA pickup location. So when I didn't have a brick and mortar location, I would just pick it up at wherever they were. So there are ways, if you're, if you do a CSA, or ways if you're at a farmer's market, to encourage that. I do that with other farms. I'll place orders and then go to the market and pick them up. So because that adds on your end a huge amount of time if you were having to deliver in an inconvenient way.
Yeah, and I would add to that too. Like, we've always stuck with like a 1 day of the week delivery. Because we're so far away. We can only do a loop of Edmonton for it to be worth our while. We're only going to go to Edmonton once a week. So we just let all our chefs know that this is the day we're coming through. This is the day we need your order by in order to be able to have it ready for you. And then our chefs have been really accommodating, with like Kaelin willing to pick it up at one of our places that we're already dropping it off. So we're not adding a bunch of spaces all over town, but if we were to add other spaces, we would just add a delivery fee, a delivery charge onto that to make it worth our time and effort there. But,
and Andrea, how much time does it take when you're doing your you don't call it a fresh sheet, but when you're updating the website, like how much from your end?
Good question. So the first year that we did it, like, if you can see it, by the way, if you go to our website, if you just want to kind of browse what we have going on there, you just hit the grocery store or online store button and you'll see it all. But I set it up with pictures. I have a picture of every produce and that kind of thing. And so the first summer when I was setting it up, it was a little more effort because I had to make sure I had a shot of everything. But now having done it every year, it's just an easy click, click, click. Like, it takes me 10 minutes or less to just go on there, unclick cucumbers and click peppers, like whatever we've got in the field right now ready and what we don't have. And so and then I can, if I choose, send out a reminder text to all my chefs and just let them know. And that's easy enough too. Like, there's the texting apps where you just have your little address book that of people, like, so all our chefs will be in there, and I could just, broadcast a little message, remember to order today or order by midnight on Friday or whatever it is. Right. And so there's easy ways to just quickly do that. It really doesn't have to.
I always need those reminders.
Yeah, and that's a good way. Like, I think all chefs do. So yeah, just doing those little things helps keep the system going smoothly.
Yes, yeah. And I think that again, I mean, I know as a business owner, coming back to that take the time to set up the right system that works so that it's easy for everyone. And at the beginning, it is overwhelming. I'm sure it was overwhelming when you set it up, Andrea. But then now it's, like you said, it's easy and smooth.
Totally. It's just, yeah, with anything, once you get that foundation laid, then it's smooth sailing from there. And it makes it easier for us. And like I said, it fast tracks the payment too. So our chefs aren't having to try to do a payment separate from the order, and we're not having to like track them down, trying to make sure they're on their payment. It just all happens right there. So it's very smooth that way. Yeah, it's good stuff.
I appreciate the smoothness of it very much, because I'm not always the most organized, although I pride myself in being organized. I'm not always.
No, and I really believe in that with any business, but like, if you're running a business and you're wanting to make sales, like, you've got to make it the most convenient you possibly can for your customer, the least amount of steps possible, and the most straightforward, right? And so, yeah, I really have found that after playing with a lot of different ways, at the end of the day, having this Square Store was like the easiest, most streamlined version for both parties. So I definitely encourage it.
Any other questions? Andrea had mentioned the negative experiences. That from my kind of perspective, I don't really think I do have negative experiences, and it honestly comes down to when, like, the investment from my end, if I'm, constantly investing in another business, and I'm getting nothing, even a thank you, like sometimes it can be, and be honest, if you don't have the know how to do it, or if you don't, just be honest and create that open relationship and say, I'm not interested in working in this way. Just being honest, because that's can create, it can create a very negative experience on the other end.
Yeah, I definitely, that was when I was chatting with you prior to this, like what worked for you, what kind of made this work. I was surprised to learn it was less about what we do, like with the business, and more about the relationship, like that really came across. So realizing there's that whole piece to this of being warm, being considerate, like you said, a thank you. At the end of the season, we try to do thank yous to all of our partners. Just those little things that you don't think about. There's little add-ons at the end. Those actually are making a big difference. So definitely don't neglect the relational aspect of
this. And I think that's to me what makes this also exciting, is the community aspect of it, right? That's, for me, it is anyway, and I think for you and Dennis, it's similar, right? That's the foundation of your business. So and aligning with like-minded people, that's which we kind of talked about at the beginning too. It's, if you're not, work with the right people.
And I guess for folks who are interested in like partnering with a restaurant, cafe, or chef, what are the first steps that they should take, or what kind of like resources should they build to make that partnership, to begin that partnership?
I don't, that's a hard, I'm the opposite, like,
Kaelin did all the reaching out to all of her farms, I think, but just as a farmer, like, I mean, it can fall on either end. We get approached by restaurants, and we've also approached restaurants, but if you're wanting to be proactive, which is always a good thing to do, I think just like if you have a pamphlet, or if you have something that kind of just has like a visual of what you grow, or what you have to offer, and maybe some basic prices on there, and also of course like your website, or how to get in touch with you. I think that's always just a very basic way to start, and like hand deliver it and chat with them. Do a reach out with email, like a follow-up email. Hey, I'd like to chat with you about, invite them out to your farm, like extend an invitation. I think any of those kind of, or all of that is a good way to start. And there'll be some misses and some that land, and so you never know what you're going to get. I've also found that we've collaborated with so many random people that have turned into really good relationships. I never would have known when I happened across Kaelin at the time, who was doing cooking classes in her home, didn't have the cafe yet. Like, I would never have known that this would cultivate into one of our really favorite partnerships with a cafe. So you just really don't know. So just put it out there and see what comes back to you.
And I think to approaching restaurants that are already supporting local, right, and that already have relationships built, because they'll know how, if you go to a restaurant that has no desire, or and maybe they do and they just don't know how, but I think starting to, if you're just showing up somewhere, reaching out with people that already kind of have a foundation of that in their business, and it's becoming more and more popular in the restaurant industry. Even over the last 5 years, it's huge, and I hope that will just continue to grow. And bringing, letting them, like, also bringing them your food and letting them taste it. Because that, I think sometimes that, especially if people don't see value in the price, it's, if you can taste, like, one of my favorite things is to serve carrots in the summer, and people say to me, well, they taste like carrots, like just a raw carrot. I'm like, well, what else would it taste like? Of course it tastes like a carrot, but it's a good carrot, right? And that sometimes food can connect people in a different way.
Totally. And there's a relational aspect to that, of like, being generous and like giving something.
Yes.
Right? So that's really good too. You stand out when you do that stuff.
What is your reaction, like, kind of touching back on that, like serving carrots? Yeah, it tastes like a carrot. What's the reaction from your customers from both sides, like from your CSA and from Awn Kitchen? Are you seeing like this translating to more people doing CSAs, or more people coming into Awn Kitchen? If you have anything related to consumers.
Yeah, I definitely see that. Like it is, you're cultivating more education, more awareness, and just you're connecting people. Like Kaelin does a beautiful job of connecting those who come into her cafe and to her cooking classes, connecting them to the farmer. And so we often see people that heard of us through her, and they're so passionate about what we're doing now because of the information they learned through her. And so, and then same, you know, vice versa. We talk a lot about Kaelin and what she's doing over there. And it's just fun to cultivate excitement and interest in other people for what is going on around in our community with food.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it's, I mean, that to me is the mutual benefit of it, right? Of why you would want to do, why you'd want to invest in building a relationship with a restaurant from the farmer side is to create that community. And there's always, you know, we do see people that become regular customers from our CSA pickups because they're close, and they wouldn't have known that we existed otherwise if they didn't pick up their CSA box here. So it's kind of a win-win for both sides.
Yeah, and we've seen too, like people from her cooking classes have become CSA members, and now are a big, you know, big part of our farm, and so it's the same both ways. Yeah.
How much, Andrea, how much of your farm goes towards, like what percentage of your farm goes towards working with restaurants and chefs, and percentage to CSAs and other sources?
Yeah, that's a good question. We are largely a CSA farm. That's still our main focus. So I would say that like 85% is probably CSA based, but yeah, we do some chefs and some restaurants on the side, and then we do some private sales too, that people who just want to buy something one time through us and stuff. So yeah.
Because any last questions from anyone on the call? Like, feel free to either raise your hand or unmute or put it in the chat. Well, maybe Kaelin and Andrea, do you have any like last, I guess, final words on if you're going to work with a restaurant, here's what you need to know?
Sure. Well, I guess to sum it up, that both sides need to be on board, and make it relational, and make it, as a farmer, make it easy and convenient as you can for them to be able to purchase through you. And as the chef, Kaelin, what's kind of the big takeaway?
Be willing to adapt.
Yeah.
I hope the food world goes more that way, but be willing to adapt and see value in the farmer, because I think I would guess that's why these relationships fall, right? Because there's they like the idea of it, and then these chefs start to use it, and it becomes tricky, and it takes energy and time on their end, and that and I think there's answers to that, like I said earlier, to educate the consumer, but value the farmers, and really ask questions and learn what they're doing, because if you know what they're doing and you know what goes into it, you're going to value their time in a different way than just thinking about the carrot that you're putting out on the plate in the restaurant. Mm-hmm. Today's vegetable was carrots. Zucchini was when Andrea and I were talking. I kept using zucchini as a example. Today it's carrots.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's been so great to have you both here and to really see how your relationships build and how we're connecting different pieces of the food system, which is such a great story to share with consumers. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.